Welcome back to NewZeroland. This is the final episode of our South Island motorcycle road trip series. That's right, no more cliffhangers. And if you made it this far, you've watched over 2 hours worth of these videos. That's like a feature film. So I just want to say to all my electric motorcycle enthusiasts following along, thank you. We ended the last episode in Reefton after a rock hit the Triumph's radiator. Everybody was wondering what would eventually kill this bike, and I don't think any of us expected that.
You can kind of see it right there. That's where it is.
So we just walked over to the coolest gas station ever, and we got this radiator and petrol tank. Like, well, it's Loctite, but it's kind of like GoPro. Like, you just smush this putty together and seal up a little hole. So the place where the rock hit Jen's radiator will be sealed and good to go. Unfortunately, this was the best we could do. It was the same situation as the Stator. We just didn't have time to take it to a shop and order replacement parts. So all we could do was patch it up and hope it held together. This pretty sweet BMW i3 just pulled up, plugged in. Did not realize that I also had an electric vehicle. I felt offended. I'm even wearing my Electro Brap t-shirt. Electro & Co. So cool. So next stop is Murchison, over some really amazing roads. Cannot wait. And it's like 85 k's away, so it should be a breeze.
We also lubed up our chains just because it's been like 3,000 kilometers and we're terrible motorcycle owners.
Yeah, now the only worry is that the Triumph doesn't overheat or spill out more coolant. I think the JB weld is holding, but like it looks good. I just don't know how bad it is. We'll find out in Murchison or on the way to Murchison if it just explodes.
I'm sure we all feel that he exploded too young, but the Lord moves in mysterious ways.
Anything could happen at this point in the trip, you know? Like, we've got 2.5 days left, and the Triumph just keeps throwing these obstacles at us. But we'll make it. I'm not worried. We should have been worried. That rock did a lot more damage to the radiator than we thought. Alright, so we'll make it to Murchison, buy some coolant, and then, wow, this bridge is cool. Wow, so cool. And then, yeah, just keep topping up with coolant. Put some more JB weld on it, I guess, until the entire radiator is just covered in JB weld. I don't know. And then just limp it home. Mr. Limp It. You never know what's gonna happen, and that's part of the excitement of road trips, I guess. What sucks is that on a really fun twisty road like this, I would love to pull over, fly the drone, get an aerial shot of, you know, just how twisty the road is. But since we're having problems with the Triumph, we really don't want to stop. We just want to get to our next destination. And, you know, especially if we pull over right now and turn the bike off, it potentially won't turn back on. So a lot of the trip's focus has shifted toward just getting the Triumph home instead of actually enjoying the ride. I mean, we're still enjoying the ride. Like, this road is really fun, and the road this morning was amazing, but still, it's kind of a pain that we can't just stop and take photos and shoot drone footage and stuff, you know? But on the bright side, look at this beautiful road and this beautiful day. Like, we could have worse days to have bike problems. Oh, okay. Okay, cool. Cool. Jen's shift lever is covered in coolant, so it's hard to shift down. Well, this is bad. Definitely stopping at the next town, which is where we had to stop anyway to charge up the bike, so it works out. I just hope we can get there. Just about every 50 kilometers, the radiator would completely drain. So we stopped in Murchison to charge the Energica and refill the Triumph's radiator for the 3rd time. You guys hear that? What does that mean? Well, charging just finished in Murchison, and we're gonna head to Nelson. We've made a decision that our very last day up in Punga Cove is way too risky. Yeah, it's treacherous and it's not worth like taking this Triumph, which wants to die at any minute, off, like way off in like a desert, or not desert, like a gravel road it goes for like 12 kilometers of gravel, and so and it's just way out there, like nothing in sight. So we're just gonna eat the cost of that, and I booked a place in Picton right by the ferry, and so we'll just try and get there and then hang out on the beach waiting for the ferry. That sounds like a way better plan. And then just limp this thing back to Wellington. Here we have the remnants of an internal combustion engine society. This antique shop. Actually, it looks closed. And then right across the street, a DC fast charging electric sport bike. The weirdest juxtaposition. As we left Murchison, I couldn't help but think, back at Springs Junction, what if we made a right and went straight to Murchison instead of turning left to go to Reefton? We would have missed that amazing road, which was totally our favorite road from the whole trip. But at the same time, Jen wouldn't have been hit by that rock. I guess it's one of those moments where you make choices and you don't look back. Ah, the sweet smell of coolant in the morning. That looks like it got slimed by Slimer from the Ghostbusters. You know? Pretty gross. It has been a day. But we made it to Nelson, and the bike is plugged in. Actually, check this out. We have our own little carport. How awesome is that? And then there's a pool over there that you can hear people splashing around. The bike is plugged in right now through the most complicated way possible. It's in through the bathroom window, over the towel rack, the toilet, the bath, the sink, the sink, over the sink, and then plugged in. Yep. So what we're gonna do is go get some food and buy some sandals, jandals, flip-flops, thongs, whatever you want to call them for Jen, and go for a hike up to the center of New Zealand. That's cool.
What's up? What's up? That's what that must do.
Interested? After a short hike up to the top of the hill, we made it. The century of New Zealand. We found out later the true geographical center isn't anywhere near this. But hey, there was a plaque and a nice view, so we'll take it. The next day was our final day of riding. We only had to get from Nelson to Picton, about 110 k's. And the Triumph had a full tank of gas, so all we had to do was stop to refill the radiator. Jen was such a trooper on this trip, dealing with all the Triumph's problems. From riding a bike that was misfiring, running on 2 cylinders, to taking the seat off and jump starting it every time we pulled over, to coolant spewing out and turning her boot green. So leave a thumbs up for Jen, the real hero of this series. Do we regret not taking the Zero? Absolutely. But the Zero would have come with its own challenges, like really slow charging and its belt drive. So with all those gravel roads, it would have been risky. And sure, a more reliable gas bike might not have had stator problems, but it may have still been hit by that rock. So the tragic end to this trip was inevitable. But we didn't go into this thinking it was a vacation. This was an adventure, and looking back, I wouldn't have changed a thing. So we're here in Havelock, charging up just to 80, because it's only 35 k's away. I didn't realize we're so close to Picton. There was a Tesla here earlier, and he unplugged. This kid walked by and was like, YouTube? Because he saw the sticker on my bike. I'm like, yeah, follow me. And he got all excited, like, Dad, give me your phone, kind of thing. So, here's to you, kid. Cheers. We made it to Picton, and that was it. We crossed the finish line. Our riding was over. The final count, 3,656 kilometers. And Picton was one of those places we passed through a bunch of times whenever we take the ferry, but never actually spent any time exploring. So we went on a little hike around the coast and checked out as much as we could before loading the bikes on the ferry for the return trip. The Triumph almost didn't make it. No joke, we had to jumpstart it again right before boarding. So now that the trip has ended, here are my thoughts. Doing a long South Island motorcycle ride like this has been our dream for a long time.
We all have dreams. I know I do.
It's one of those bucket list things you tell yourself you'll do someday and always put it off.
But someday isn't on the calendar, so we just booked the time off work and made it happen. You know, we have a finite number of tomorrows. Why not start working on that bucket list now? I also wanted to see if it was possible to do this trip on an electric motorcycle, as a personal challenge and also as a commentary on the bike and charging infrastructure.
I'm limited by the technology of my time.
I'll say this much, it was both easier and harder than I expected. There were some really tough parts, like the West Coast, which has no charging stations at all. But then there's this 300-kilometer section with tons of DC fast charging that's all free. Actually, speaking of money, how much did it cost to ride each bike? Gas versus electric time. For the Triumph, we spent $359.46 in gas. Pretty standard for riding that far, I think. Gas is pretty expensive in New Zealand. And the Energica's DC fast charging costs added up to $158.82. So half as much. And you're probably like, yeah, because it's electric, duh. But the electricity from those charging stations was also crazy expensive. A full charge would cost me $10 to go about 100 kilometers, which ended up being exactly how much it cost in gas to ride the Triumph 100 kilometers. The only reason the Energica was twice as cheap to run is because a lot of those stations were free and I could also plug in for free overnight at motels. So if I was fast charging all the time and I was paying for that fast charging, at least in New Zealand, it isn't cheaper than gas. That's what surprised me the most. So what about that gas bike? I'm sure you guys are all wondering, what happened to the Triumph in the end? Well, it didn't make it home. The battery was so dead that we had to jumpstart it 3 times between the ferry and our house, so we ended up just leaving it at the bottom of the hill and coming back to pick it up the next day. We sold the Triumph about a week later. I felt kind of bad about leaving it like that, but also didn't want to fix it, so it's somebody else's problem now. So that's it. I'm done with gas bikes. See you later, Triumph. Go away now. Despite all the difficulties and bad luck and stressful cliffhangers, we had a great time. That being said, our next road trip will definitely be all electric because the Energica, what can I say? It never disappointed. This is one of the best motorcycles I've ever ridden. And now Jen wants one too. Alright, that was our trip. Hope you enjoyed it. Yeah, thanks for watching and I'll see you guys next time.